The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Arcane Wonders, game toppers saying goodbye to a very weird year, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's The Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board card and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes take a look back at the year that was in 2020, talking about their favorite games, shows, and a whole bunch of other things. They'll also be joined by special guest, Abby. And now, The Dukes of Dice.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And Alex.
And this is episode 241. Hindsight is 2020. That name suggestion, thanks to Steve O'Rourke, the name father, even though there was no naming contest, he happened to supply it in just one of the threads. How did that come up, Alex?
So I posted, because we had no idea exactly what we wanted to do for episode 241. We weren't really set up well for a review, and it's sort of an end-of-the-year episode. Anyway, it's always a good one to take a look back and take stock of the year that was, which we will do. So I put up a suggestion box on the Guild, and folks made some wonderful suggestions, some of which we are definitely incorporating here. But Steve O'Rourke, in the midst of that, said, Hindsight is 2020. Dustin Dowdle popped in there, said, yep, perfect name for the episode, regardless of the topic. I would agree. And Hindsight is 2020 is perfect. One, talking about, obviously, the year that was in 2020, but two, looking back on it, and three, kind of looking back on it with regrets, I guess, because of the nature of 2020. So it's a perfectly fitting name. And yeah, we got to find something else to have on the Guild because this will drop well after we recorded it. So we have to find. I think we have to find something. I'll find something on the Guild. Keep your eye on the Board Game Geek Guild. I'm gonna come up with something entertaining there to make up for this.
Well, and then just to kind of let people know who don't know, we get help naming all of our Guild episodes, all of our actual episodes, these episodes, this thing that's in your ear right now, from our Board Game Geek Guild, Guild number 2008. And yeah, so check in to the Dukes on deck to see what we're talking about in future episodes and to kind of throw your 2 cents in and to also help name the episode. Normally, this is when I'd say we'd give you the rest of the runners up at the end of the episode, but there were none. So yeah. So thanks, Steve. Well, Alex, this is weird. This is different. We are doing an early morning, not early. We're doing a morning recording. 9 a.m. is not early. A morning recording, which we haven't done in a while. I can't remember the last time we did a morning recording.
Well, the thing is, being remote, being as distant as we've been, and by the way, I think this coming year, Sean, we may have been remote doing this podcast longer than we were doing it in person.
Okay, that's crazy.
Right? Isn't that nuts? That's wild to think about.
Yeah.
And that used to be a more common thing when we needed to squeeze in, oh, yeah, I have something on Saturday, we got to squeeze this in so Sean has enough time to record, so we have to do it in the morning. That used to be a thing. But those morning records, not usually our finest hour, generally speaking.
Energy is down. Energy, at least for me, energy is down. I could even feel it right now, and I'm consciously trying to up my pep. You see that? That was me upping my pep.
Get that pep in your step.
Yep.
Yeah, we're doing a morning recording. I don't know. It just worked out timing-wise, so.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, I don't have any other comments on that.
Well, yeah, and we're recording this. It's Sunday, which is about 5 days before we would normally record the podcast. However, the Thursday, which was when we normally record, that's going to be Christmas Eve, and so obviously that's problematic. So you're hearing this a little bit after we've recorded, unlike most times. No big deal. No big deal.
So if any major events have happened in the world, which I wouldn't rule anything out, just know that we don't know about them yet.
Yeah, I mean, if the aliens were to actually come on like December 28th, I'd be like, oh, all right, well, yep, welcome, thank you.
Yeah. I don't know what other crazy things could happen.
Well, did you hear about that? Like, it was an Israeli, like, defense minister,
yes.
like, retired defense minister, like, really well-known and well-regarded general, like, Israeli general, who was like, yeah, aliens exist. The major governments know about them. There's a galactic federation. They're just waiting to kind of see. And yeah, I'm like, okay, that's weird. That's weird.
Would it be the weirdest thing that happened in 2020 if it happened?
Yeah, yes, it literally would be. Hands down.
Probably would be.
Are you sure? I mean, it seems like a close call.
Actual aliens versus all of the other insanity of the year. Yeah. How have you been? Sean? How's the Dukes of Diet going? How's the holiday season going?
Good. I'm doing good. The biggest struggle I have right now is deciding what to cook for Christmas. I don't want to do a turkey. Don't want to do a ham. We just had prime rib for Thanksgiving. I'm leaning towards that, but I think there is a little. I don't know. I've been doing good on Dukes of Diet. Still working my way back down from everything, but doing good. Back on keto. Like Mariah and I were cheating like crazy, but solidly on keto. Like solid. So much so that yesterday I went to Golden Pride to pick up some delicious breakfast burritos for the family and myself. And instead I ordered no hash on my burrito. And I came home and I opened up the burrito, took out the inside and stuck it in one of my low carb tortillas that I've gotten. So I could still do that and still do keto. So yeah, it's going well. Excited for a couple days off for the holidays. We're just taking off Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and then of course we'll have New Year's Day off. So looking forward to a little bit of time off. How about you?
Well, I think actually I'm realizing you may have buried the lead here. I don't know if I'm preempting something later in the show, perhaps.
Yeah, you are.
But there was some.
Carry on.
I'm not gonna jump in there. Okay, because there's a headline that I'm very excited about that I'm wondering why you didn't mention it here.
Yep.
And now I know why you didn't mention it here. I'm gonna continue on. All right.
Move it along, Alex. Move it along.
That would be a very me move to preempt and mess up that news. Anyway, I will shut my mouth hole, and by shut my mouth hole I mean keep it moving, but in another direction.
Yep.
So no, I'm fine. Things are reasonably well. I can't talk about this yet. Never mind. There's something on the employment front that's interesting. I don't think I'll end up needing a lawyer for it. But I'll talk to you about this off air, Sean.
Okay.
It's a positive thing. Positive thing. But
right.
But just know that my life sometimes is never ending chaos. Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the not so good. No, but things are well. Abby and I are doing fantastically. You'll hear from her a little bit later on. A little bit bummed. I think I talked about this in prior episodes. This is going to be the first year where both Thanksgiving and Christmas I will not have spent with my parents and my family. And I'm sure there are plenty of other folks who are listeners who can identify with that. There's some moment in your life where that eventually happens. Maybe it doesn't happen for some people. I'm not sure, but not for lack of trying. It's just flying to Florida and hanging out with my folks makes limited amounts of sense given what's going on. And my brother described kind of hanging out in this moment as spiking the ball before you cross the goal line, because we seem to be so close with the vaccine and doses rolling out, and it looks like we can kind of sort of see the timeline for when this might actually be over in the coming months ahead. So patience is hard. Patience is a virtue. It's not one I possess, but hanging in there. Abby and I have some nice holiday plans. Plenty of presents under the tree. It's looking very festive here. Later today, I'm going to be doing some shopping for her holiday stocking, and we'll see how that goes. So yeah, nothing too earth shattering or crazy, but yeah, that's what's going on.
Cool. All right, well let's talk about some recent plays. I don't have really much to talk about here because we're kind of quick after our last recording, but I will briefly mention that I did get to play Dune Imperium, the game that you were so hot on in the last episode, and a game that by all accounts I should enjoy. It's a deck builder worker placement from Direwolf Digital, same people that did Clank, right? And it's got obviously a theme that I love, which is Dune, and it's interesting, Alex. I don't know if you caught on this, but obviously there's a big influence from the movie. I mean, I think it was designed to release when the movie was supposed to release in December of this year, which got delayed, I think, until October of 2021. But they even mention that, you know, this is based off of the Dune movie, the Legendary Studios Dune movie, and the novels, plural, by Frank Herbert, Brian Herbert, and Kevin J. Anderson, meaning that they brought in some of the stuff from Frank Herbert's son and Kevin J. Anderson. Some of the other houses are houses that were like barely referenced in the original Dune book. So I found that kind of interesting. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it because we're going to be reviewing this. Is it the next episode? Is that what we have a plan for? Okay.
Next episode. Yep.
So yeah, I will say this. Alex, you said that I should hold off on making any Game of the Year predictions, as I did last episode, until I've had a chance to play Dune Imperium. I played one game last night. I made sure to play it before we recorded because I wanted to at least have it there in the back of my mind. I will say it is not a contender for Game of the Year, although it is quite good. It is quite good. So
is it good or is it great?
I don't want to. Quite good is me. Some people could take that as great. Some people could say no, he doesn't want to leave the good realm, and so I don't want to telegraph too much about my score. It was frustrating in all the right ways, if that makes sense. That's a good thing. I mean that in a good way. And Raquel just destroyed me. Like it was bad. It was super bad. At one point, she's like, "Huh, it seems like it's really important to get a lot of spice." I'm like, "Yep, that's Dune."
Yeah.
And it was a little frustrating because she has not read Dune. She's not seen the movies or the miniseries. And so every time like there'd be something very thematic in one of the cards, I'd be like, "Oh, look." And she's like, "I don't know what that means." I'm like, "Okay, never mind." So anyway, that's just a quick little, hey, I played Dune Imperium and I thought it was, what did I say? Quite good?
Quite good.
Quite good. Quite good. And that's all you'll get out of me, Alex.
Fair enough. I will say I enjoyed both the 2 and the 3 player implementation of this. The 3 players, sorry, not an implementation, just the game, but the 2 player implementation. I liked that the deck that it included to kind of simulate that. I thought that it handled that quite well. I don't know how you felt about that though, Sean.
Yeah, so in a 2-player game, you have a dummy player, and then in a solo game, you can have you have to have 2 dummy players. And I thought it was one of the most straightforward and streamlined automa systems I've seen. Like it was very easy. And I really appreciated that because some difficult automas, dummy player systems can really kind of be hard to process. So I liked it. I thought it was solid.
Yeah, and still accomplished, I think, what it needed to accomplish in terms of limiting options, making sure that people don't just cakewalk to a battle. I don't know. I liked a lot of what it did. Anyway, yeah. Very good. I'm glad to hear it wasn't a complete and total flop because I would have would have had egg on my face. But yeah, cool. Let's do an Imperium. I will talk about a game I just played last night, which is Mysterium Park. Sean, have you heard of Mysterium Park?
I have. I've not played it, but heard of it.
So Mysterium Park is based off of the system Mysterium, which was one of the very early favorites of the podcast. Certainly one that we played at my very first convention, Dice Tower Con. I bought, this is always a good memory, I bought Jason from the Dice Tower's copy of this. It had a few cards missing. It was the Polish art and Polish edition of it. And a few cards missing, and he's like, "It's okay, just contact the publisher, they'll get you the replacements." They never did. But I ended up buying another copy of this, and the copy that I have on my shelf is actually the US edition, the one with the very fancy over-the-top components. Looks very nice. For folks who don't know Mysterium is a game where it's a cooperative game. You have one player who's a ghost, who's trying to give the other players clues on how a murder happened or didn't happen. Basically, you are able to clear suspects based on clues. The clues are given only in the form of abstract art cards. The clues themselves are funky, weird, can be easily misinterpreted, and can be very frustrating if you're the ghost trying to pass those out. Usually there is a person you're trying to get, there is a place you're trying to get, and a weapon you're trying to get. And then there's a special, if you get all 3 of those, that all gets grouped together, and there's a round where the ghost is going to give you one final clue, and you get to pick and see if you uncovered the murderer. So that's the Mysterium at its core. Mysterium Park is effectively that entire system, right? You still have a ghost who's giving out abstract art cards. That part's the same. You have a suspect and a location. You don't have a weapon. You have just those two. What this does really interestingly, though, Sean, is it streamlines the system as a whole. So in Mysterium itself, there's a lot of setup to it because you have to lay out these specific 7 or 8 weapons out of the 20 some odd the game might include. And then you have to find the matching cards for the ghost to have so the ghost can kind of pair them up with different players. Then you have to do the same thing with people, and you have to do the same thing with locations. And it looks beautiful on the table, but sometimes the fiddliness of the setup makes it a little bit harder to dig into. This one removes a lot of those elements of fiddly setup because what it does is it adds this card similar to what you would have in Codenames Duet or Codenames itself, where you have a map effectively of the board. So you'll lay out 9 suspect characters, and then the ghost has a little card that shows the white player has this, the red player is this one, the purple player is this one is a witness. So the witness is a new mechanic in Mysterium Park. The witness space, if anyone picks it, that's revealed first. That person who picked the witness can then move to any other character on the board, and anyone else who had previously placed a selection can then change things up. It's beautifully scaled in that you have 9 options, which is certainly tricky, certainly difficult, but it lends itself. You don't have to think a lot about the different setup levels. You don't have to think about 8 cards for this number and 9 cards and 10 cards. It's the same number no matter what you have. So you have 6 rounds in which to get this all done. If you do that, then you pair up 3 select people, 3 select locations, and they're stacked in columns, 1, 2, 3. The card that you have for the locations tells you which one is the actual true suspect, and you'll give clues, 1 clue tied to the person, 1 clue tied to the location. Those get shuffled and revealed, so you don't know which card paired to what, and then you guess. Abby and I played 3 rounds of this last night. We won 2 of the 3, playing kind of a 2-player variant where you would play as 2 characters instead of just 1. It was equal amount of fun compared to something like, say, Mysterium. Not quite as beautiful on the table, but definitely elegant. And if you're looking to get into Mysterium, or you find that system kind of bogs down a little bit, I think this is a good thing to pivot to. So Mysterium Park, it's smaller, certainly less expensive, but gives you all that Mysterium flavor and feel.
Would that increase my enjoyment of that game? Because I'm not a huge fan of Mysterium. I've warmed up on it a little bit since we reviewed it. I've played it a couple times since. Still not crazy about it.
Well, I'm trying to remember why, though, because I think it depends on the why you didn't enjoy Mysterium.
It felt like a lot of sitting around and waiting for people to make decisions. And I like action, Alex. Action. Come on.
I don't think there's anything in this system that fixes that.
Okay.
Right? But what it does fix or cut down on, if you're looking for more action, is, again, that setup time. Because you're dealing out the 9 cards into these spaces. Instead of having this big elaborate shuffling and figuring something out, you have this 1 card that tells you where the different people are. As a ghost, it's easier to see where you need to give out clues. It's harder to mess things up. And as players, it's easier to kind of parse the board as well. It doesn't mean the game is necessarily easy, but it is, it's enjoyable. So I don't know if it fixes it entirely, Sean, but I think it does cut down on some of the downtime that might have prevented you from enjoying it as much. Okay. Also, all the cards are circus themed, so if you like circus stuff, I guess go for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
It's a little creepy, actually.
Yeah. No. What I'll tell you is the art, the presentation, and the theme, so to speak, of base Mysterium, I like because there's more variety in it. Mysterium Park is very true to its theme. It's circus. It's creepy. It's spooky, but the locations are often a little bit samey as a result of that. The people are certainly unique and interesting, but I don't know. I like the variety that's inherent in Mysterium, but I like the lack of setup that I have to do with Mysterium Park. What I think you could do, I don't know about easily, I don't know about card sizes for this, but I think you could absolutely blend Mysterium systems and graft that a little bit onto Mysterium Park, which might cut down on setup. It could be a good way of selecting who has what in what round. So anyway, that's Mysterium Park, and give it a look if you liked Mysterium, worth a check out. If you haven't tried Mysterium yet, I think this would be probably a better entry point than Mysterium itself. So there you go.
All right. Well, I will talk about not a board game, but a video game that is board game. Well, that is tabletop gaming adjacent, because board game is not the right term necessarily. So every couple months, Steam does one of their Steam sales, and I'll see stuff that's pretty cheap, and I'll be like, oh yeah, and then I'll kind of forget about it, and that's what happened here. I had downloaded Battlefllet Gothic Armada 2 several months ago, and it just sat there. Alex, are you familiar with Battlefllet Gothic at all? Have I talked about it?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. So Battlefllet Gothic was what really got me back into miniatures when I was in college. So Battlefllet Gothic is part of the Warhammer 40,000 universe, and it's basically think World War I naval warfare in space. Okay, so you've got these really cool miniatures. They're, depending on the size of them, they're like 3-4 inches long, of these big Gothic looking spaceships, and they're on these little flying stands. And you are basically, you're moving them in straight lines. They have to move a certain number of centimeters before they can change their heading. And they can only do that by a certain number of degrees. And you're measuring there with, rulers, how many centimeters they can move, etc. And it's this feeling of these big clunky ships that are really slow to move. They're trying to bring their major weapon systems on their sides to bear. And so it's a lot of maneuvering and trying to line up the right firing arcs, crossing the T. Do you know what crossing the T is, Alex?
I don't.
So it's an old, like, naval warfare, World War I naval warfare, where you're trying to be shooting at a ship as it's approaching you, and you're the top part of the T, because your side is exposed to them, so all of your guns are bearing on them. Anyway, it's a game that I enjoyed quite a bit. We played this for years with Ellie and Mitch. Andy even played a little bit, and Anthony played too. So this was a game that I loved. This was probably always my favorite of all of the different games that I played from Games Workshop. And so when I realized, oh, there's a video game, yeah, cool. So I started playing this, and there's a campaign system, but it's a real time game where you have control of ships in your fleet. So there's no taking turns. It's not a reproduction of the physical game. It's a real-time game. And it is really good. It is exactly what I would have wanted. It is frustrating because the ships don't do exactly what you want them to do when you want them to do, meaning that it's recreating these big, ponderous, slow-moving, slow-turning ships, and it is about the maneuvering. It's did you ever heard of a game called Jane's Fleet Command? A video game?
No.
Okay.
No. Why would I have heard of that?
So Jane's Fleet Command came out in the late 90s. And if there's anyone out there that's played Jane's Fleet Command, they know it is an experience. So this was something, in my understanding, that this was actually used at like the Naval Academy for training. Basically, it focused on carrier task forces, carrier task groups, where, so modern warfare is much different than these old time ship of the line. I'm sorry, I'm boring you, Alex. These old time ship of the line style of naval warfare. And with carrier task force, you've got a carrier, and then you've got like destroyers to protect the carrier from incoming fire, and then it's the carrier sending out its fighters and whatnot. This reminded me a lot of that, because it was a very slow game. Like if I want, like in Jane's Fleet Command, if I want to launch fighters, there's some fighters that are ready to go right away. There are others that are on like ready 5, ready 10, ready 15. That's how much time it takes to actually get them prepped, put the pilots in, and launch them. And so it was this very slow, methodical game. This is a little bit faster. Like when you're ready to launch fighters, you can launch fighters real quick, no problem. But then there's a cooldown timer to launch new ones. It's really solid. And Mariah had told, did I mention this also on the podcast prior, that Mariah had wanted to play, or at least try, Warhammer 40,000
Yes, you did mention
Okay.
that.
And so I've picked up some more terrain. I'm going to work on the terrain hopefully over the holidays, and kind of play one of the older editions. But maybe Battlefleet Gothic, there's less pieces to manage. There's less. It's an easier rule set. Maybe that might be something she might be interested in. I don't know. I'm pretty. It brought up a lot of memories for me from having played Battlefleet Gothic. It was also a little jarring because since I've not really been in Games Workshop in that universe much in the last 6 years, they've made a lot of changes, like to the different races and like their backstories, even the names. Like, so for example, the Imperial Guard is no longer the Imperial Guard. They're now called like the Astra Militarum because they want more unique names, I think, so that their IP, like, because Imperial Guard, that's super generic. The elf race, the Eldar, Eldar, they changed that to the Eldari, Aeldari. Again, trying to be more distinct. So it's just a little weird, and kind of learning about what's changed since I've been gone has been interesting. But anyway, Alex, hopefully some of our listeners found any of that discussion interesting. I have tried for years to play Jane's Fleet Command. Usually you have to get some sort of emulator so it runs on a modern PC, but I haven't been able to do that. Jane's Fleet Command was so good. But Battlefleet Gothic Armada 2 is also really good. And I'm done. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh my goodness. I don't know what just occurred. I was listening well enough to answer your questions. But if you ask me anything about what you're talking about, I think what I remember was Eldari, and and not Imperial Guard, but something else. That's about it. I'm so sorry. Anyway, last one I'll talk about is one I also played just last night. My brother at the last moment was like, "Hey, I'm trying to play a 3-player game on Board Game Arena. What would you recommend?" I asked him, "Hey, what kind of level of gamer are we talking? How long of a game are you looking for?" I made a couple suggestions. He's like, "How's Downforce with 3?" I'm like, "Oh, it would actually be pretty good with 3. Have you played it before? No. Would you be up to having a 4th?" So I basically invited myself into the game. So we had 4 players, my brother and 2 of his friends. And by chance, we played 3 games of this, but the first 2 we played were 2 tracks I had not played before because they're the expansion tracks from Downforce Wild Ride. Downforce, for folks who don't know, is a racing game. It's a racing game where at the start of the game, you will draft a team of cars. You will get abilities that come with those cars. It's possible some people, based on player count, will have more than 1 car. When you cross certain lines on the board as you go, you'll place bets as to who's going to win the race. And depending on where that car finishes, you'll get paid out an additional amount. So even if your car is bad, you can still win the game. And yeah, played Downforce. I gotta say, Sean, that has been one that I think if I were to look back at my original review of, I grossly underestimated the amount of times I would play that thing again, both in person and I guess now online. That's one that's stuck around and is really good. This just adds to that, Sean. So what I'm going to talk about are the 2 new tracks from Downforce Wild Ride. You have Aloha Sands, and you have, what is the name of this other track? Aloha Sands and Savannah Stretch. So I'll talk about Savannah Stretch first because it was my second favorite, although I liked both tracks. Savannah Stretch, the twist in this one is you have animals on the track. So you have antelope, you have an elephant, you have a python, and though they kind of serve to block, they work as a catch-up mechanic in a sense because they just kind of sit and block the way until the player moving forward crosses that line, and then they move to another spot on the board. They kind of tromp down the board and block additional space. You can use these animals in pretty brilliant ways. My brother, for instance, sidelined me by having there's one elephant section where if the elephant's there and your car gets steered into a corner, your car literally cannot move until someone moves that elephant out of the way. So a lot of fun. Really thematic and interesting. I've seen some pictures on BGG of people using actual elephants or antelopes or pythons to kind of block the way. That's the gist of it, though. It sort of serves as a catch-up mechanic, as blocking spaces. Interesting enough. Not as interesting in my mind as, and I think this was pointed out in the when we did the review, Sean, was I mentioned, hey, I would really love to see some jumps. Like, some jumps would be buck wild in this. Well, either they just had this idea or they listened to me directly, and I'm directly responsible for this. We'll never know for sure. But Aloha Sands uses ramps. These ramps, in the physical edition, actually stand up from the board. In the digital version, they're just, flat spaces with ramp numbers on them. That number lets you skip certain sections of the map, but you can only use the ramp if, one, the movement speed of your card that you played for that specific car is equal to or higher than the number on the ramp. So if it's a 4 ramp, you have to have your car moving 4, 5, or 6 in terms of the speed on the card. It doesn't matter whether you have 3 points of movement, 2 points of movement, whatever. By the time you hit the ramp, it's just that the card you played did that. Your car has to have at least 1 space of movement remaining when you hit the ramp space, and the landing space on the other side has to be empty. If all 3 of those conditions are met, you can use that ramp to make a sick jump. And in some cases, depending on how you play your cards, multiple jumps at once. This is wacky, it's fun, it's not realistic at all in the sense that you have some of these jumps where the car's actually turning midair, would have to turn midair to go from where it launched to where it landed. I don't care one bit. I loved it, had a ton of fun playing this, and beautifully set up. One of my, I think my favorite Downforce track I've played, just because of the wackiness, the positioning with the ramps. It's one of those where moving someone else forward can actually be a disadvantage because they might move you. You might be set up to take the ramp, and it might move you over to the side where you have to take a bunch of additional spaces to use the ramp instead. Super fun. You can play it all on Board Game Arena. You can play, I think, all of the tracks on there. But yeah, this expansion only had me enjoy Downforce that much more. Really, really, really cool track, especially Aloha Sands. So that's Downforce Wild Ride. And I think it lives up to that name. Sean, have you seen or heard of any of these tracks?
Yeah, I've taken a look at them online. Haven't played them yet. I've actually been contemplating playing Downforce with Chewie pretty soon. I think she'll have no problem with the card play, with the maneuvering of the cars. I think it's just a matter of the initial auction. I mean, she could do it, but I think she'll have some trouble with the rationale for choices, and then also the mid-race betting. I think she'll have some. Again, I think she can pick one, but I don't think it's going to be like the most informed decision at this point.
Would you play without powers?
No, I don't think so. Again, I don't think that's necessarily the part she'll struggle with. It's more of like the reasoning for making certain strategic decisions. But I think that the tactical card play, I think she'll be fine with.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear how that goes. I will say with Downforce, I keep mentioning I dramatically underestimated how much I like this game. I think when we did the initial review, I might have given it as low as a 4. Yeah. And it's really more in 5 or 6 territory, realistically, especially with all of the additional cool content that keeps coming out for it. So, yeah, this is one I might have to scoop up sooner rather than later. It's one I would play over, say, Camel Cup, which has a lot of fun wackiness to it as well. But I think I like Downforce as a game a little bit better, which is surprising to me.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's Downforce Wild Ride, and that's what we played, Sean. Coming up next, a quick discussion topic as popularly requested on the Guild. A little quick chat with Abby, my wife.
Well, we talked a lot the last couple episodes about the Freedom 5 Kickstarter that was up from our friends over at ArcaneWonders.com. And shucks, wouldn't you know it, the campaign is over. A very successful campaign. They had almost $1 million in pledges, $944,247. Oh my goodness, that's so much money. Now, don't fret though, because if you didn't back in time, you can still do a late pledge. You can get the Citizen Pledge for $49. You can do the Hero Pledge, which is for the Kickstarter exclusive edition, for $109. So head on over to freedom5game.com. That's freedom5, F-I-V-E, game.com. That'll send you over to their late pledge site where you can take a look at all the different options for getting in a late pledge. Not sure how long this is going to be up and running for, so I would say hurry, act now. Definitely check it out. That's freedom5game.com. Additionally, check out all of Arcane Wonders' other awesome titles at arcanewonders.com. All right, go check it out.
I am truly honored to be joined once again by Abby, my sweet sassy, not fiance, not girlfriend, wife. Hi, wife.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing well. You were not originally going to be appearing on this episode, but the guild demanded it. They would not let you off the hook. How do you feel to be demanded on a podcast?
One, I feel like you're probably overestimating. There was probably not like this, like, we will revolt if she does not appear. I somehow doubt that was the case. But yeah, I mean, at least they're not sick of me yet. At least you're not sick of me yet.
Not yet. Not anytime soon, I don't think.
I hope not.
Yeah. So this episode, we're talking about Best of 2020. And later in the episode, Sean and I will be discussing best games of 2020, video games, experiences, all that fun stuff. What I wanted to ask you about would be a couple of your bests of 2020.
Okay.
Specifically, and you had some time to think about this, your best game of 2020. I want to start there, and then I want to move into a completely different little segment. So among the many games I've introduced you to over the course of this year, I'm going to name what I think are contenders for your best game of the year.
Okay.
Sonora, I think you really enjoyed. The Crew, I think would be my prediction for your game of the year selection. You like New York Zoo, I don't think it would be high enough. Calico would be the other one. So I think it's between Calico and The Crew for your game of the year. What was your pick? Because I asked you this morning, and you seemed to know pretty quickly which direction you were going to go.
I pretty quickly did decide which direction I was going to go, and it was between two games, Calico and The Crew. But the winner for me is Calico.
Oh, a little bit of an upset for me, actually. I'm a slight amount of surprise because I think my guess was going to be The Crew, just based on you have that trick-taking background. We played it with your family. We played it with my family. It certainly seemed to get a lot of use, and this was one you were encouraging me to bring to go when we went to go see your parents for Thanksgiving. So, talk about why The Crew was one of your top two, and then why Calico was your top one.
So, like you said, trick-taking background. I grew up playing euchre a lot, and my family played euchre. And so that was like the games that we played were trick-taking games, Phase 10, stuff like that. So The Crew kind of brings back some of that original game experience that I have, but it's cooperative, which is really fun. We had a really fun time playing that with your parents, and it's always nice when you're playing a game with people and they also enjoy playing it. So it was really great, and I liked it. But for me, the reason that Calico won out for 2020 Game of the Year is like the theme and the quality of the materials and everything. Like, it is just relaxing and beautiful, and it's quilts and cats, and it just feels like very appropriate for the indoor year that we had. And sort of not doing anything. Like The Crew's like, you're in space. Like this. Calico was more 2020.
So it better fit the theme of the year.
It better fit the year. It fit the mood of the year. Everything was just a little quieter, a little slower, a little bit more at home if we had a cat and a quilt.
So I think a lot of folks know what The Crew is. It's been pretty widely talked about within the hobby. Calico, maybe a little bit more of an X factor. Calico is a game where you are trying to build a quilt, as Abby mentioned. You have different colors and different patterns on the tiles. The decision's very simple. You have 2 tiles that you can pick from. You can place it anywhere on your board, and you are trying to score points in a variety of ways. I think I was surprised, Abby, at how crunchy that game was, how tricky a lot of the decisions were. The core mechanic is really very simple. It's pick this tile, place it somewhere. Pick this tile, place this somewhere. Pick the next one to refill. But you have to really think. I mean, this is a brain burner of a puzzly game, despite its cute appearance.
Yeah, no, that's what I like too. And you kind of can allow yourself to pick how difficult or easy you want it to be. Each puzzle has different levels. And you can go into it and be like, I'm going to focus completely on this one first. But if you do that, then you'll mess up the other ones because they're all interlinked, because they're all on the same quilt. So it really is a think across all pages all in one go. It was good. I liked it.
What was your least favorite game of the year?
God. I'm looking at the shelf. I think it was probably that one that's not on the shelf right now that was in like a hot pink box.
Hot pink box.
It had so many pieces.
Sorcerer City?
Yeah.
What was it about? Yeah, you did not like Sorcerer City.
No.
Why didn't you like Sorcerer City?
Oh, there's so fiddly and so many things and so much and over the top and I just did not enjoy that at all.
So one of my favorite things to do with you is ambush you with covers of games and have you talk about the cover and name of the game and give me kind of your hot take reaction. So what I've done is I've pulled up the top 10 games on BGG.
We've already done that.
For this year.
Oh, okay.
For 2020.
Okay.
I know we've already done it. I wouldn't have you do, cover old territory. So first up is going to be Gloomhaven. Oop, I'm going to turn my laptop to you. This could get a little bit fiddly.
I definitely already talked about Gloomhaven.
This is a different one. This is Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion. What is your reaction to the cover of Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion? And the name too, I guess.
The name is bad. Jaws of the Lion. Like the Lion's Den, perhaps, or like Jaws and it was sharks, but like Jaws of the Lion. I don't like that. This is admittedly a very tiny picture, but I don't like it. What is it? What am I even looking at? Like a teeny tiny tabletop with chairs around it and stuff on it?
That's what it appears to be, yeah.
It feels a bit like what's that show on Netflix where the kids play D&D?
Stranger Things?
Stranger Things. Like Stranger Things meets Wishbone. Like it feels like the intro to a show and they were like, we're going to zoom into the map that's on the table. I don't know.
All right, for this next one I'm going to try and bring the image a little bit larger.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, that's better. This is a game where the cover I think you will really like, but the name you might be bored with.
All right.
The game is On Mars.
Oh, yeah. Love that cover. Really nice art. That's cool. I don't hate the name either.
Why don't you hate the
Simple.
name? Because space games, space theme, you haven't hated as much as, say, train themes or war games or things like that, but it hasn't been one that usually excites you either.
Sure. I guess I don't like space fight theme where they're like, it's a war in space. That's not really like my thing, but like stellar, beautiful, lovely, looking at space. That's nice. On Mars, really nice colors, complementary colors, that blue and orange, classic. It looks nice. It's very simple. Yeah, I like it. It doesn't look too crazy, violent.
So I will tell you that BGG, Board Game Geek, has a weight rating for games.
Yep.
And it ranges all the way up to 5. The current average weight rating for this particular game is a 4.62.
It's going to be a hard pass for me on that game. No thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that would be hefty for me. It's a Vital Lacerda game, so he tends to...
You say that like, well, of course, everyone knows what a
everyone
Vital
knows.
Lacerda game is. Is that a person?
It is a person. Yeah, Vital Lacerda is a person. He's a board game designer. He does hefty games that you would probably find too complicated.
Sorry, Vital.
I'll put it this way.
Hard
One
pass.
of the games, Kanban, it took me 45 minutes to learn the rules for how to play that game.
But you would absolutely lose me. I would turn into a very mean person if you took 45 minutes to teach me a game.
Yeah, I think your cap is like 5-10 minutes, maybe.
Maybe.
And ideal if we can kind of learn as we play.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, next up, Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy.
Okay, the name is too much. Is this a game that already exists, Eclipse, and then this is like another version of it, Second Dawn for the Galaxy?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Yeah, that is too much. That's a lot of mouthfeel happening with that one. But the box is really nice. It's all blue, shades of blue. There's kind of like some planets on it, and it looks like something, an outer space, space shuttle not shuttle, what's the word I'm looking for? International Space Station-esque
Hmm.
sort of thing. Looks really nice. I don't understand the extra long title attached to it. I also don't understand when they give a game the same name, but it's a completely different game.
Well, they like additional, new editions of it. This one's more in range, by the way. This is a 3.49 out of 5 BGG weight rating. So doable, but it ranges in playing time 60 to 200 minutes. So
Too much.
yeah, maybe a little too much. All right, this is another one with a longer name and kind of a funky to pronounce one. Let's see what you think of the look of this. Again, I think this is not a game you would enjoy necessarily, but the game is Tekenyu, Obelisk of the Sun.
What an awful name and really bad art. This is all bad. This looks like the cover of a 7th grade social studies book where you're going to do your Egypt section and learning about Egypt that year. Yeah, this is not, like, none of this is good. This is definitely textbook art. And I don't mean that in terms of, like, this is textbook, this is how you do it. I meant, like, actual middle school textbook art. And yikes. What is that name? Tekenyu?
Tekhenu, Tekenyu. Or Tekenyu. It might be pronounced a little bit differently than how...
Tekenyu.
Yeah.
Where's the emphasis? Where's the emphasis on this?
Syllable.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about that one. What's interesting about the next one on the list, number 5, is Calico.
Great. Perfect. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Looks great. You like the name. You like the look. There is another one, the next one that I'm going to come down on the list. In fact, there's 2 more on this list that you're familiar with.
Okay.
One of them you were familiar with for a bit of a negative reason.
Oh, no.
And I will show you this. And I will throw out there, I have been paid to promote this game. This is not me promoting the game as part of those duties.
Oh, okay.
It's Oceans. Oceans from North Star Games is next on the list.
I was literally just complaining about this game to you.
Yep.
Because we went to IKEA last weekend to buy some more storage because our game shelf had been overflowing, and I don't like when things are too stuffed full on the game shelf. So we went to buy some more storage. And I was trying to find a space to put Oceans on the shelf, and all 4 sides of the box have like paragraphs on them. There isn't a side that just says Oceans and looks really pretty. And so there's no way to put it on the shelf unless it's like taking the whole front and center of the shelf, which takes up way too much space. That's absolutely not going to happen. So the box, like the cover is beautiful. The colors are beautiful. It looks really nice. I love that. But the side panels are awful. And so it is not on our shelf that people can see. It's in the back bedroom. Womp womp.
And that's a shame because, as you mentioned, as a piece of art, the cover of it is
it's gorgeous.
Stunning. Even the back cover of it is beautiful. But I will agree, and I've talked to Dominic from North Star Games about this, and I think in the most recent printing they have a version, or at least a side or two, that has the Oceans logo on the side, because I think it would look stunning if it was just that side.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Yeah, no, it was something I noticed when we had it on the shelf, and it didn't look super great.
Perhaps some of these other games also have that same problem, but they've just lucked out and not been on our shelf, so I can't complain about their side panel artwork. But
Yep. All right, next up, Viscount of the West Kingdom.
Viscounts of the West Kingdom.
Could be that too.
No, I was thinking like discounts on the Viscounts. No, the name is not good, but like, what's a Viscount?
It's some version of a duke, I would think, or a count, or it's some sort of rank.
Really unnecessarily pretentious. But the art looks nice. I don't really like, there's like these, it's like a big man with a flag. And then there's like these little tiny buildings underneath him. And I'm not really a fan of the buildings, but the man itself, the colors and everything. I feel like, so Alex and I just went on a binge of Ink Master on Netflix.
Yeah. Yep.
And we watched a lot of it. And by a lot of it, I mean the full 2 seasons that are on Netflix in 4 days. And I feel like Dave Navarro being like not a good enough judge. He's there with 2 professional people who know exactly what they're doing. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I mean, it looks nice. But yeah, definitely what Oliver said about the blending and the shading and the lines not being thick enough. Like, I feel like the judge that doesn't actually know what they're doing right now.
It looks nice, but, not nice enough, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, what they said, it's bad.
All right, 2 more. We've got 2 more of these. Or sorry, 3 more. But 2 that are new to you.
Okay.
2 that you haven't seen before.
All right.
This is Forgotten Waters from Plaid Hat Games.
I like the name. The box is intriguing. It's a bit much. I feel like it could have been composed a little bit better. It seems like an ocean tornado that everything's getting sucked into, but there's a few things that are just sort of like plopped on there that aren't great. But it's bold and it's bright and it looks cool. The name seems good. I don't know. What's it ranked? What's the thing? I would potentially play that.
For weight rating, let's take a peek. So, Forgotten Waters, this is very much in your wheelhouse. This has a weight rating of 2.22. Now, I will say the hours listed on BGG have a playing time of 120 to 240 minutes.
Whoa!
My guess is for fewer, that would be on the lower end. I will say this too. It plays 3 to 7 players, so it might take post pandemic times.
What
to try
game
that.
has a 2.2 rating but it takes 4 hours to play?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. It's an interesting mix because most of those games would tend to fall in the 45 hour and a half, 2 hours kind of range.
I'm just trying to think of like playing Calico for 4 hours and wouldn't you just kind of get like, good Lord, are we done yet? Like, is there that much creativity happening in the decision making?
So I'll read you the description. Forgotten Waters is a Crossroads game. So Crossroads game is hard to describe, but basically there was it's not The Walking Dead, but there was, I can't remember the name of the game to save my life in this moment, but it was a game that kind of evoked The Walking Dead, where you would have people kind of all huddle up in huts, and then you'd have to go send them out to go fetch things and avoid the zombies. But when you flipped up a card, the system would give you story choices and decisions to make, things like that. It's a pirate adventure. Players take on the roles of pirates sailing together on a ship, attempting to further their own personal stories as well as a common goal. The world is silly and magical, with stories designed to encourage players to explore and laugh and delight as they interact with the world around them. It's a game in which every choice can leave a lasting impact. So it may be a multi-part kind of experience, potentially. I'm not actually sure. I have to look a little more into this one, but it sounds on its face like one that would be enjoyable. But timing, yeah, I mean, that's a long game, especially. I mean, that's a long game for me. It's certainly a long game for you.
Yeah.
So
you would have to bribe me with a lot of sweet treats for that one.
So these last 2, you're actually familiar with both games, sort of. I don't think you've ever played King of Tokyo, have you?
We've had that on our shelf for way more than 2020.
Yes. This is King of Tokyo Dark Edition.
So this is one that's been on our shelf since Alex moved in, which was almost 2 years ago. And we've never played it. At least I've never played it.
It's not a great 2-player game in general. King of Tokyo is more of I'd play with no fewer than 3. Maybe 4 probably would be better. It's certainly one of the earliest games I played in the hobby, and one of the first games I owned in the hobby.
I like this better than the box that we have on our shelf. The box on our shelf, did I move it? There it is. It's a little bit like purpley and orange. This one, it looks a little bit sleeker, cooler, spookier. I like it. Is it a different game? Or is it just new art?
They've made some adjustments, but I think it's primarily new art.
That's cool. I feel like that's a good way to refresh a game instead of like putting your old game name on a new game and being like, it's the game. It's the same thing. I think just like, hey, we basically kept it all the same, but now we put new art if you want something different. I like that.
Last one on the list is one that we have on our shelf. It is Tang Garden.
Ooh, okay. Tang Garden is beautiful. The production is gorgeous. The pieces are beautiful. The box is beautiful. Like, everything is really nice, but it is a lot of stuff. Like, it is so many little fiddly things that every time you're like, we're going to play it. It's like, okay, this is a lot for not a very long game, but it's gorgeous. It looks beautiful on the shelf.
It's one of those to play 2 at a time, probably.
Yeah.
It's not quite short enough, though, to have that be like, oh, yeah, we're definitely going to play 2 at a time of this. Like, we played, and I talked about this earlier in the show, Mysterium Park. We played back-to-back-to-back rounds of that.
Yeah.
Super simple, fast. It's meant for multiple rounds. We do that with Azul Summer Pavilion all the time.
Yep.
And I think we did it with Calico once as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we did.
So, yeah, it's not quite short enough to warrant that. It's certainly not long enough to warrant the setup. So it makes for a nice piece on the shelf. I don't think it'll go anywhere anytime soon.
Nah.
We both enjoy the game well enough, and it looks pretty. There's a difference in this shelf in that there's more of an aesthetic to it. We have the overhead lights and the cubes, and we have the llama and some of my mom's pottery and a skull. So it's a better setup shelf in general. And so for just the aesthetics of it alone, I think that's earned it its spot. But I don't think it's one we'll be playing a ton. So.
Have you ever done a thing on your podcast where you have people send in pictures of their game shelves and storage?
How about this? Do you want to have people judge? Do you want to judge people's shelf setups? Is that something you want? As a
okay,
segment?
I don't want to judge them because these are actual people's storage setups in their home, and whatever you like in your home, you don't need me to be like, what the heck, dude? This is hideous.
You don't want to give it a grade?
No, that's not nice to other people. I don't want to beat down other people's things. These are professionals who put their artwork out in the world and deserve criticism on them. It's the way someone sets up their home. I don't want to do that on your podcast, but I do want, one, ideas because we're constantly running out of game storage, and two, just to see how other people have setups and what things you like about it and what things they don't, or if they're like, this is my setup, but I don't like it. Can you give me ideas? Then I would definitely participate.
Okay, so this will either be an advice segment or a crowdsourced segment of some kind.
Help me, and I'll help you.
Okay, I like it. Well, good. That's all I had for this segment, Abby. Thank you for participating as always. I think the guild will be grateful for the cameo and hopefully for some shelf storage advice tips.
Yeah, Dear Abby on the Dukes of Dice. Always here for advice.
Thanks, Abby. Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye. Thanks again to Abby for joining me for that. I hope it was worth it, Guild. I hope the request was worth it. I'm recording this before we actually recorded that segment, so apologies or you're welcome, depending on whatever happened there. So there you go. All right, next up, Sean. We have some best ofs to discuss. We've got a little bit of a year-end recap to go through. Well, when we look back at 2020, it is certainly going to be a memorable year. I think it's going to be a year that a lot of people point to as one that they won't forget anytime soon. Mostly in the negative, some in the positive for me. And I think for other people too. I think in any year, some people can find a silver lining, even if it's a small one compared to some of the negative stuff. But yeah, between the election, the pandemic, conventions getting canceled, publishers having to scramble release timing and schedules, the movie industry getting turned on, it's just been such a strange year. So we're gonna do our best to try and recapture this, Sean. We've come up with 6 categories of bests, because we're going to try and look on more of the positive side of things. So we have Best 2020 TV Show, Best 2020 Experience, Best 2020 Video Game, Best Online Gaming Experience, Best New to Me Game, and Best 2020 Game. So those are the 6 categories we're going through, looking on the bright side of things, and sort of moving up the list and kind of getting closer to board game adjacent. Sean, we sort of discussed this ahead of time. Does that order sound about right to you?
Yeah, that sounds right. You know, what we've typically done in the past for year-end episodes is here are our top 6 games or top 10 games, whatever, of 2020. And I think you've done a good job of playing a bunch of new games. I know I haven't. So that's kind of why we're doing something a little different here.
Oddly enough, Sean, this is the one year where I've been active on BG Stats. So I'm actually pulling up my BG Stats app to reference all of the different things that I played that were new to me. So a little wild. I've always been kind of anti BG Stats, but yeah, there you have it.
So I'm looking at my BG Stats. I have played 80 unique games in 2020, which is I think low. I think low for me. Can you tell what you've done?
So I didn't track it all. I tracked starting in May, June, and then I gave up in December. So
Okay.
there's a lot of stuff that's reflected in here, and there's some amount that isn't. I will tell you that between June and early December, I played 60 new to me games.
Oh, wow. Okay. Because I'd say like my 80 is not, that's not new to me. That's just 80 unique games. And I'm looking here, there's a lot of older stuff. So interesting.
Yeah, I definitely have you beat in terms of unique plays of things. But again, I didn't properly track it, so I don't have evidence of that strictly. But just in terms of new plays, I have a good amount more.
Well, I mean, you can testify as to what you've done, and then as the finder of fact, I can weigh that in light of other evidence presented.
No, I'm good. I just trust me. I played a lot more than you did, but that's okay. It's not a contest.
Well, thank you. That's magnanimous of you.
Magnanimous Duke Alex.
All right, well, let's kick this off, Alex. So first, we're going to talk about our favorite TV show of 2020. I had also kind of want to talk about best 2020 movie, best 2020 book. I will say that I had a hard time coming up with a 2020 movie. And as far as a book, it would be Battleground from Jim Butcher, The Dresden Files, but I can't really talk about that because it's like the 19th book in a series, so spoilers. And then you couldn't come up with either of those, right, Alex?
No, definitely not.
But I think best 2020 TV show, I have so many candidates. Why don't you start us off?
So this has definitely been a good year to watch a lot of TV. I think for a lot of folks, Netflix has been a saving grace. Hulu Plus, Disney Plus has been a saving grace. Oddly enough for me, and we talked about this a few episodes back, Sean, but the show that has held up as my top show of 2020 is a show that did release a new series in 2020, but is not new to 2020. And that continues to be Taskmaster. I find myself looking forward to that show more than any other show, to the point where I don't actually have other contenders I would put up against it. There are other shows I've enjoyed that Abby and I have dug into and watched a ton of, but this is the one that continues to stick with me. Taskmaster, for folks who don't know, is a British TV show where you have 5 comedians who are asked to do a variety of ridiculous things, whether that be eat as much watermelon as you can in a minute, or come up with a theme song for this woman after interviewing her for 30 minutes, or they're just creative gaming kinds of tasks. It has that same kind of spirit of Great British Baking Show where the prize is not really significant. The prize for any individual episode is just the 5 different things people have kind of brought in, and the prize at the end of the entire series is a quote-unquote golden version of the main host, Greg Davies' head. So the stakes are low, but the competition is fun, funny, it's lighthearted, it makes me crack up every time. I can't believe we were able to get one of the co-hosts, Alex Horn, to do a little special video for Abby and I's wedding. Yeah, it was... that's a show that has really helped us get through a lot of 2020. We watched all 11 series of it, 10 series plus the best of the Champion of Champions. It is available on YouTube. There are full episodes available on YouTube. Give it a try. It costs literally nothing. You don't have to have a streaming service, but well worth getting into. Easily my TV show of 2020, Sean.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I remember you talking about that. And as far as reality shows go, like it has to be something that really catches me. And so I don't know. All right.
Have you seen an episode of it yet? Wait. Have you tried it yet, Sean?
No, I haven't tried it yet.
Okay. I'll find a clip. I'm going to send you a clip. You have to promise me to watch one clip.
I will watch
a 9,
one
10-minute clip.
Ooh. Keep it under 7 and I'll do it.
Oh, that's tough.
Just kidding.
That's
I'm
tough.
kidding.
All
I'm
right,
kidding. That's fine. I'm kidding. It's fine. I promise I will watch it. I promise I will watch it. Yeah, so it's interesting. The only reality shows that I've watched this year, there was one I think I talked about on that last episode, the survival show where they drop you off in like the Arctic wilderness. That was really good. I also watched this like barbecue cooking show, like cooking competition.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
What the heck was it called? I watched the whole thing through and I was so emotionally invested. And I was like, oh my God, these people are amazing. I want to be able to cook barbecue like them. Can you find what that's called? I feel like
I think it's something like Great Barbecue Showdown, but yeah, Abby and I watched that one too and really dug that one as well.
Did you watch it all the way through?
Yeah.
Okay. So my actual show of 2020, top show of 2020 is The Mandalorian. Hey, are you not watching The Mandalorian at all, Alex?
Okay, so I am behind, and I know I have enough board game friends on Facebook and Twitter to know that stuff has been going down, and people have been talking about this as the best Star Wars thing that has come out in a very, very, very long time. I am still watching season 1. The episode we just watched was, and there aren't enough episodes that folks would like, but it was the one where he runs into a rookie bounty hunter. The rookie bounty hunter, they're hunting down someone, and then he comes back and she's babysitting the kid. Anyway, that's where I am at in that series. We are watching a couple episodes every week, so we'll get caught up at some point. But it's good. I think season 2 is likely to be great, though, is my sense of things. Sean, is that fair?
Right. So for a lot of people, the sequel trilogy, Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, were very divisive. Like, and some people being pro one movie and anti another movie, like just very divisive for the fan base. And I'll tell you, my big overarching problem with all of it was there wasn't a plan. There wasn't someone that was like taking it through episode 7, 8, and 9. Like it was just different. Anyway, okay. So around the time Rise of Skywalker came out, I think that's when season 1 of The Mandalorian first premiered. And first off, it was something brand new in terms of being a live action TV show. That's new for Star Wars. And it was not focused on Jedi. It was not focused on the Skywalker clan. It was this Mandalorian. And it was very much a Western. And then there's even like certain episodes that felt very, because a lot of the spaghetti Westerns were heavily influenced by like Japanese samurai cinema, right? And so even elements of that kind of came in, both in seasons 1 and seasons 2. So this was something very different. And this was done by Jon Favreau, who basically started up the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He started, with Iron Man. And so he's a very competent director, showrunner, and yeah, I was by the end of season 1, I was very impressed. I'm gonna spoil certain elements of season 1, but nothing that would spoil you, Alex.
Okay.
Basically, this Mandalorian, he's got this crazy armor. It's impervious to a lot of stuff, and he is this great warrior, and he has found this baby Yoda. Right? That's a spoiler for episode 1. And if you don't know that, it's such a part of the cultural zeitgeist at this point. That's on you. I'm not going to spoil anything else. But he's trying to return Baby Yoda, who now may or may not have a name. I'm not going to say that. He's trying to return Baby Yoda to other Jedi, essentially. And so that's what season 2 focuses on. I'm not going to get into details of season 2. What I will say is that it kept delivering episode after episode. For a lot of people, they say it kind of feels like a really good version of Star Wars video game, Star Wars video games, and that's kind of how it feels. And a lot of times it's like, oh, here we are, we're on a side quest now. This isn't part of the main plot, it's a side quest, but it's been really incredible. The set design is incredible. Do you know they don't use green screens typically? Instead, they have these giant LED screens behind them that's showing like the actual whatever backdrop. Instead of superimposing it later in post-production, it's actually there. Are you aware of that?
I was not aware of that. It's
really interesting. I watched something on YouTube about it, because they can change it in real time. It gives something for the people for the cast to interact with, rather than they know what's going on. Plus, for the lighting, you don't get that sort of green glow around the edges or blue glow or whatever. You get the actual light that would be there if the set were real, if portions of the set were real. But they still use a lot of physical sets. The production on the show is incredible. It rivals anything from any of the Star Wars movies. and the character development is incredible. You get moments with like Imperial troopers that are humanizing, which is really interesting. But the finale was incredible. It was the season 2 finale was just incredible. I'm not going to say why. If you've seen it, you'll know why. I mean, I was like yelling and screaming and in tears and like it was just incredible. And it captured feelings and the magic I had as a kid, and it was phenomenal. And there's a meme going around. So do you know who Dave Filoni is, Alex?
I do not know.
So he was like the showrunner on, I think he was the showrunner on Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. And he's been an executive producer on The Mandalorian. And so there's this meme going around of here's a shot of Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni working on, episodes of The Mandalorian. And it's basically two little kids playing with their 1970s, 1980s action figures. And that's right. Like that's exactly what it is. And it's fantastic. So I've watched the episode, the finale, 3 times. It came out yesterday. Today's Sunday, right? Came out 2 days ago. I've watched it 3 times. And yeah, it's pretty amazing. So that's The Mandalorian. That's my top show of 2020.
Now, Sean, just to check in on this, because right now I'm like, this show is good. Season 2 is really that much better in your mind?
So I really enjoyed season 1. I like Westerns a lot. And I liked that this was more of a Western in space than Firefly. And some people are going to be pretty pissed to hear that, but I really think so. Yeah, I think season 2 is much better. There's kind of a slow burn at first, but at least the last 4 or 5 episodes of season 2 are just coming at you. Crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some payoffs for stuff from Clone Wars and from Rebels that if you're not familiar with them, then it may not be as big of a payoff for you. So yeah.
Well, good. That's our best TV show of 2020. Now we're going to move into best 2020 experience. And I think mine would be more obvious than yours, Sean, because folks have kind of heard it play out over the course of this show, over the episode. So I think even though I went first on the last one, I think it makes sense for me to go first on this one as well, because I think yours is more of a surprise.
Yeah, that's fair.
So when I moved to St. Louis, I moved here for a job. I moved here for a job with Gray Fox Games. I didn't know anything about the city. Didn't know much about much. Didn't have a ton of connections here. Happened to have a friend who I knew in college. Knew some folks in gaming circles. That was about it. What I didn't expect to find here, not that I wasn't looking, but what I didn't expect to find here was a relationship that would grab me and fulfill me in a way that, in really thinking about it, a very short amount of time, blossomed from a date to moving in to getting engaged and getting married, all within a very short time frame. Abby, my first date with Abby was in February 2017. So we're talking about, shorter than that, February 2018. So we're talking about a period of time where haven't known her 3 years. And for context, I was with Jillian for 5 years, Sean? I think 5-year period. And there's just something that has clicked and blossomed, and it paid off in a sense over the course of 2020. We started off with an engagement shoot. We'd gotten engaged in the previous year, right around Thanksgiving. We had an engagement shoot earlier this year. Both of our moms came into town for wedding dress shopping. Our moms really clicked and hit it off and got along together really well. There there was a plan. We had a plan in place for a big ceremony at a Third Degree Glass Factory here in St. Louis. And then COVID happened. And we waited and we pondered. She had a bachelorette party that got canceled at the last second. I had bachelor party plans that we ended up using as the wedding itself. And it was this kind of ongoing source of anxiety. And should we wait? Should we not wait? What should we do? And we decided to kind of go full steam ahead. And there's some pieces of that will be kind of minor regrets. I really wish you could have been there. I really wish a lot more friends could have been there, more family. It would have been amazing. But the experience we had, the intimacy of that, of having both of our families together out at the Gamers Ranch, just kind of all of us and Dave Reagan, kind of taking an escape from the pandemic for a little while, having a vacation together as a family, swimming in the lake, playing games late at night, hanging out, preparing for this big thing, having tamales driven in from New Mexico and enchiladas, and there was just something really wholesome and beautiful and intimate about it, of these two families becoming one. And I get emotional thinking about our vows and thinking about especially her vows and talking about choosing me and feeling really loved and cared for, and obviously something that's going to be with me for the rest of my life. And I think in a positive way, and in a way that I couldn't have expected it would be as positive as it was, even when we were kind of planning it as a backup plan. The best backup plan of 2020 and the best experience of 2020. If I'd picked anything else, I think I would have been in trouble anyway. So
yeah, wish we could have been there. But and then we've gone through something similar. We were going to get married in the fall, and we called it off pretty much right at the beginning of COVID. We're like, yeah, there's no way. We didn't want to put down deposits or anything, but cool. So my best experience of 2020 was the Mandalorian season 2 finale. Just kidding. Close second. No. So for people that don't know, literally the day before the Mandalorian season 2 finale, we had a court hearing in which it was made official. I legally adopted Mariah as my daughter. It's called an adult adoption, which I think most states have, and it's done for a couple purposes. Number one, it has the ability to change a birth certificate as part of a name change. It has the ability to affect inheritance rights, even though it's not a big issue. But then also, it makes permanent something that may not otherwise be permanent. I think it adds something to that. So, I've been involved with Raquel since 2013. So 7 years. About 6 months after we started dating, she and Mariah moved in with me. I had never dated a mother, someone with kids. And I did that kind of purposefully because I wasn't sure that I wanted kids, and I wasn't sure that I knew that's a different responsibility to date someone who has kids. And maybe there's a little bit of selfishness in there too. I don't know. But I hit it off with Raquel, and I'm like, wow, yeah. And I hit it off with Mariah. Mariah was 12 when I met her. And, I think one of the biggest regrets in my life at this point is that I wasn't there for the first 12 years. Not that there's anything I could have actually done different, but you know what I'm saying? It's if there's something I can do, if there was some wish, some genie giving me a wish, it's that, well, all right. So anyway, we've been a family. Chewy was born in 2014. And we're a family. And I've always worked really hard to make sure that I treated Mariah the same way as Chewy, who's my biological daughter. And that's really important to me. I have a half brother. And so, I have some kind of understanding of that. And so it's always very important that that there not be a difference in status, and how I treat them and things like that. And so I think this was sort of the natural extension of that. And so we had talked about, I talked about with Mariah probably about a year or two ago. And Raquel and I had kind of discussed, well, let's wait until she's an adult because it's an easier process. There's no objections that can really be made at that point. And so for her birthday, we surprised her with the petition. So I drafted up, hey, I'm able to do this as an attorney. I drafted up the petition for adult adoption. And we presented to her on her birthday, and she was really happy with it. Someone who was not happy was Chewy. Chewy kind of understood what it represented, and she got really upset. She got upset so much so that she ripped up the petition. Did I not tell you this at the time?
No, I've not heard this story ever.
She ripped up the petition and threw it in the trash, and she didn't want to talk about it. And I mean, she like locked herself in her room. She was super upset, and we're like, well, this doesn't change anything, with you and us. Like, if anything, this just makes it official. We're all a family. So since then, she has completely changed her tune. I'm not sure what exactly was kind of going through her mind at the time. But she really didn't want to talk about it at the time. But no, she's fine now. So we showed up at my office. This was a hearing with a judge that I'm in front of quite a bit, which is nice because there's a personal professional connection there. And we had my other attorney in my office, quote unquote, represent me. There was a weird. It's too technical. I wanted her to represent me, even though I did everything. I drafted all of the documents and would have been fine doing it myself. In fact, that was probably one of the hardest things, was to sit there in virtual court, and let someone else do the talking for me. That was super weird and very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I believe it.
But no, so we had Raquel and Chewy, and then of course Mariah. The four of us were there. And we put everything on the record for the judge, and the judge was like, yep, is this what you want to do, Mariah? Is this what no one's forcing you to do this. You understand all of the repercussions, et cetera. And so she said, oh, I'm going to grant the decree of adoption. And, she is now my daughter, and I'm her father. And going forward, I will no longer feel any need to qualify anything, oh, this is my stepdaughter, although not technically stepdaughter because her mom and I aren't married yet, but I think of her as my daughter and treat her that. No, from now on, this is my daughter, Mariah. And that's that. So,
and it's been true for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. It didn't just become true now in that sense. Like how you've treated her, how she's been in your life. You have been a father to her for that entire time, just about. So I'm getting emotional thinking about it. I didn't know it was in the works, and it's so cool that it's official again. Practically speaking, there's nothing that's different, but there's a lot of deep meaning there, and it's a really beautiful thing. I'm so happy for Mariah. I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for everyone. I'm so happy for y'all as a family. It's tremendous, really tremendous.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's really cool. We celebrated afterwards by having some seafood boil, which is one of her favorites and one of my favorites. It's really good. So had some nice king crab legs and some scallops and some big jumbo shrimp. But yeah, it's very cool. And Chewy was very happy, very excited throughout the whole thing. So
I'd be curious if someday you can get an answer out of her as to why she was so upset. If she can look back maybe someday and spell it out a little bit more. I'm curious about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not. I am too. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if she thought it was going to affect her and my relationship, or if like you only have so much of fatherhood to give, and now half of it's been given away. I don't know. You know what I mean? So, it would be interesting to hear her side of it when she's able to kind of process it when she's older. So no, that was hands down my best experience of 2020. Even in a normal year, I'm sure that would have topped the list.
No doubt. Yeah. Always nice to find some light in a year like this. And yeah, that's a huge moment. I'm so happy for y'all. Again,
thank you.
Can't say it enough. Well, that we made a mistake of ordering this because we peaked a little bit early here. The rest of this is going to seem really, really stupid and meaningless in retrospect. So, well, let's press on nonetheless, Sean. What was your best video game of 2020?
Yeah, so the short answer in theory would be like Magic Arena, but I'll forego that. For me, it was Slay the Spire. And I think I expect to know what yours is, and it's not going to be Slay the Spire. We've talked about Slay the Spire quite a bit on the show, and it's a roguelike card game that you're trying to basically go up, progress up these certain levels, fighting monsters, encountering vendors, and little events that can affect you in different ways. You have a life total, and that life total does not reset after each encounter. It only resets once you get through an entire act. And so you are trying to craft a deck, gain certain artifacts that are going to give you an edge. And it's just incredible. I haven't played it in about a month or two now since I started playing Hades, but the fact that this is a card game really, really speaks to me. There's different builds you can go about. There's different deck building strategies. Different achievements you're trying to get. I watched a ton of Slay the Spire content on YouTube, which I've done a bit for Hades, but not as much as Slay the Spire. I think the fact that it's a card game kind of speaks to me in a different way than maybe you, Alex, which is why I'm guessing it's not your video game of 2020. But no, Slay the Spire has been great. Hades has been great too. It's not a card game, but I suspect that's what you'll be talking about here in a second.
So I will say that Slay the Spire would be my runner-up. It's fantastic. I played a ton of it. I love the different builds. I'm certainly probably not as good at it as you are, but I've enjoyed it nonetheless. I like Slay the Spire a lot. For me, Hades would definitely take that one. It's richly thematic. I love roguelikes as a genre. In fact, I haven't been playing as much Hades of late. I've been on a run of 13 clears in a row. So that kind of, I think, not feeling as challenged in that at the moment had me switch over to Streets of Rogue. Have you heard of Streets of Rogue, Sean?
I haven't.
It's a top-down Grand Theft Auto. It's sort of like the original Grand Theft Auto in that way, which was a top-down game. It's like that. You have a wide array of characters you play. It's a roguelike, so the worlds that you play in are randomly generated. And the characters themselves have different purposes, goals, missions you need to fulfill. So you can play as, say, one of mine that I like a lot is the hacker who can kind of remote hack computers and cause them to release poison gas into different rooms, sending people scrambling into the streets. Or you can play as the wrestler who can pick up stuff and challenge people to fights. Or you can play as a vampire and drain people's blood. Or you can play as a bartender and just go around town making different cocktails for people and kind of charming your way through the game. It's a really fascinating one. It is very difficult. It's a very difficult game, even more so than Hades. So I think the challenge of that has engaged me as well as the variety. But no, Hades just for sheer gameplay presentation, the variety in weapons, the variety in different keepsakes you can have. This is a game where you are trying to escape from Hades, from hell, and reunite with. I'm trying not to spoil any story elements here. You're trying to get to the surface. You're trying to get out of hell for reasons that are described as the game goes on. You get boosts from different gods that will affect different attacks, your cast, or it might affect your special ability, or it might affect your speed or your ability to gain treasure. And those boons play off of each other in different ways. You can upgrade your weapon. Really, really great game. Voice acting is top notch. It's gorgeous. It's addictive. Hades, strongly recommended. And Sean, have you gotten to the point where you've actually cleared the game? Because I remember when you first quote unquote cleared the game, you hadn't actually done so.
Yeah, I literally just had a certain achievement that I thought that was it, and then it wasn't. And I text him like, I did it, and then literally as I clicked the button, I didn't realize that we were still fighting, and I lost. I was like, oh, I don't know that I would have been anyway. I haven't completed it. I took a step away for a little bit because it was just too all consuming at a certain point. So something interesting. The videos I did watch on it, I kept hearing them call it roguelite, Lite, not roguelike. Are you aware of the difference?
I'm not aware of the difference.
Okay. So in a rogue-like with a K game, you basically start each run at baseline. Like there's no difference. Whereas in Hades, you have improvements that stay from run to run. So that's a rogue-lite with a T game. There's some progressive achievements that occur. So Slay the Spire is a rogue-like with a K. And Hades is a roguelite with a T.
Makes sense. Yeah, okay. Starting from scratch. They're even though you get some improvements sometimes that vary with Slay the Spire, it's not a consistent like leveling up.
Right.
Okay.
I started playing another roguelite game, but it's a card game, and I'm completely blanking. I'm trying to sign into Steam so I can remember what it's called. I've probably played about 15 runs or so, but kind of gave up on it. And it's good, but it's not better than Slay the Spire. And I'm blanking on the name. I'll pop in here at some point with what it is.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, that's best video game of 2020, and that ends our non-board game related categories, Sean. Now over to best online tabletop gaming experience. Best online tabletop gaming experience. Sean, do you want to go first with this one?
No, why don't you go first? Because this was the one. I'll explain why this was one I was having trouble with.
I had some trouble with this one as well because technically there are I thought of, say, Animal Crossing, which again fits more in the video game side of things. but that experience was a lot of fun when you had people invited to your island, whatever else. I'm not going to throw that in there as the pick, but that was up there. Learning Tabletop Simulator, that was up there. But I think in terms of the thing that got executed best, that was sort of that classic, and tabletop gaming is an unfair descriptor for this. So I call this best online gaming experience, but I think it fits for what would typically fall in the realm of this show. It goes to True Dungeon. So True Dungeon, for folks who don't know, is an in-person experience where it's a blend of live action role playing, it's a blend of D&D, it's a little blend of shuffleboard is kind of mixed in there. And a lot of these collectible types of games like Magic the Gathering. It has a collectible chip system. Basically, you are immersed into a dungeon. The rooms have either puzzles or they have monsters you can fight. And you will either engage physically with the puzzle or you will battle the monster, usually using this shuffleboard combat system. There are also spells you can cast. It's very D&D-esque in that way. They took a big leap and did something called Virtual True Dungeon, moved everything online because they obviously didn't have the ability to do this in person at Gen Con, and boy, they would have been in some financial trouble otherwise. So they launched it. I don't know if it was Gen Con or Origins where they first had this, but it's this system where there is a golem that kind of guides you through the run. So there's a golem that the players collectively all control. And so you could say, hey, golem, look at this, or golem, turn your head and look at that. And for some of the puzzles, because they're virtual, they use that to their advantage. So golem, hey, go and open this door and see what you have. And they'll open the door in the physical world, but then on the screen overlaid might be like the image of a ghostly figure or something like that. That's a clue or a hint to the puzzle. For the monsters themselves, they're able to have kind of different animations or things, ways that the actors can kind of go and respond as different attacks are used or not used. They've built out a whole system to track the different rooms, and then they still send out the tokens. So is it as good as an in-person True Dungeon experience? No, but they came really close. They took what was a rough hand and they turned it into a really immersive, rich experience, and they've been able to use that to have these runs outside of the typical context of a convention. They would only usually run this at a handful of conventions a year. Now they're running these events more regularly, so it's almost giving them a way to possibly expand or grow this as a business and give people a way to kind of sample and taste the experience before they actually dive fully in. I found it really engaging so far. I've been on a couple of runs, and I've been surprised at how well the system has worked. So there have been a couple glitches here and there, but for the most part, it's been this nice immersive experience. And for me, the best online tabletop adjacent or related gaming experience of 2020.
Can I tell you, Alex, what is one of my big nerd culture pet peeves?
Uh-oh.
So when you say that it's a golem that's taking you through, are you talking about it's Smeagol?
No.
Or so it's a golem?
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh boy.
Sorry to be pedantic.
that is up there.
It's something
that is a oh man.
It's something I've noticed. So ever since the name Gollum has become more part of the culture since the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies come out, it's something that I've noticed for years now. Years and years, and like whether I'm watching YouTube or hearing people talk about, oh yeah, there's this rock golem, they'll say there's this rock golem, and I've never said it until now. It's just been building up in me for years, Alex, for at least a decade, and finally I'm gonna say it's you. I think you mean golem, not Gollum. So I apologize. This is look. It's been a long time coming. It's not at you. You just happened to be the one in front of me that did it when it finally just bubbled over the surface. So.
Wow. I'm glad to have brought that out of you.
Well, you're welcome. Again, just the straw that broke the camel's back.
Great. Awesome.
It's not Smeagol, right? Just making clear.
No, it is not specifically Smeagol from Lord of the Rings walking you through this world. No.
I mean, maybe, right? Who knows? They've got some deal with the Tolkien estate. I don't know.
Unreal. All right. What's your best online experience, sir?
I don't know that I've had one. And let me so something really weird has been happening. So normally pre-COVID, we have Dukes of Dice Wednesday night, and I'm there every Wednesday, except unless it's a holiday or something's going on, whatever. But I'm there 50 out of 52 Wednesdays of the year, let's say. So that's continued to a certain extent. Good friends online Wednesday night. They've been doing it like clockwork, and I haven't done it in like 3 months now. And I can't tell you why. It's nothing against them. It's nothing against the games that they're playing. It's not, there's just like this fatigue, and I miss games. And I'll still play like online now and then. Like Ellie will say, hey, let's play Scythe. I played a Scythe game with Ellie, Mitch, and Andy, like a month ago or so. And Ellie and I played Flesh and Blood on Tabletop Simulator the other week. And so it's not that I don't want online gaming or not willing to do it or haven't done it, but there's something about, I don't know, there's something about some sort of fatigue. And I think it comes down to like, I'm on the computer all day anyway, at work, and I'm interacting all day, but I'm so willing to come home and play video games, which is me either on my console or on my computer. But I don't know what it is. And again, it has nothing to do with Matt or Matthew or Eugene or anyone else. Like that's not it at all. I can't tell you why I don't have the energy to do that on Wednesdays, but it's certainly some product of everything that's going on. And when we're able to get back in the shop and play games in person safely, I will be super excited to do that. So I don't know. I'm very exhausted at the end of every day. So
So I will say this, Sean. I had been a regular at Jamie Stegmeier's game nights, which are kind of once every couple of weeks online, and I just got fatigued for the same reason. It's nothing against him, nothing against anyone else in that. I don't enjoy online board game play as much as I do in person. It's not close. It's not close for me. I think that's part of what attracts us to the hobby. There are just, if I'm going to be playing something online, I tend to prefer video games. They just execute it just a little bit better in general. But also, I just haven't had the energy or the desire as much. So I'm excited for things to open back up. I haven't looked, but I hope Geekway to the West happens in 2021. That would be incredible. One, because I could get rid of a bunch of stuff that I don't want here anymore. But two, because I can get that convention experience back in my veins. And in person, I'm looking forward to that being more of a thing again, because it's been doable. And big thanks to Abby for helping make it happen in terms of getting stuff reviewed, and big thanks to Raquel on your side and Mariah for making sure stuff gets reviewed. But man, I'm looking forward to the in-person stuff again. There's no doubt.
Has Geekway, are they looking at the same time of year in the spring, or are they looking at pushing it back?
So they had been in May, June, and I don't know. At this point, that might be fine. It might not be fine, but I haven't heard any word from them officially one way or the other of late. I also haven't looked, so I don't know what they're considering or not considering. I don't have a good answer for you on that. Yeah,
okay.
I don't know. We'll see. So that's best online gaming experience, also known as Sean not voting on this category. Next up, let's do best new to me game. This is a game that's new to you, but isn't a 2020 release, is sort of the distinction I'll make here. So a game that was released previously that you didn't discover until this year. Sean, you get to go first this time.
Yeah, so for me, it's going to be a 2018 release designed by Simone Luciani and Nestor Magnon, with art by Clemens Franz, and that is Newton. And it's actually a game that I did play on a Wednesday night online on Tabletop Simulator with, we tried to play it twice. It was with Matthew, Matt, Eugene, and me. And the first time we were like 80% through the game, and we realized that we played a certain card of mine completely wrong that was way overpowering, that if we continued to play it and I won, it would have felt bad, but we were far enough along. So we just like, let's quit it. Let's play again. And then we played again the next week, and Matthew's computer crashed. And so that was that. Then I picked up a real copy from Empire, and Raquel and I have played it a couple times, 2 players, and it is fantastic. Have you hadn't played it because we talked about it before on the show?
No, I have not played that one.
Yeah. So and again, I've talked about it before, but basically it's a midweight Euro. So again, I like midweight Euros. Just there has to be something there. And this definitely has it. There's a really interesting hand management system where your actions that you're selecting are the cards that you're playing from your hands. And there's different actions associated with different parts of the board. There's like a map of Europe where you're able to kind of travel around. There's a knowledge tree, which is like literally like branches that you're going down to teach at a university. There's like a construction track. There's all these different tracks, for lack of a better term. And the cards that you play affect which of those actions you're able to take. But then you also have to tuck one of those cards that you've used, I think that you've used at the end of the round, which is going to give you a bonus to a certain type of action to make those actions more powerful as the game progresses. And it's just really great. I highly recommend people seeking out. Simone Luciani is one of my favorite designers. And Newton does not disappoint. So I will be excited to play this at a higher player count. I think it'll really shine at 3 in person. It's not the type of game I think Mariah would be super crazy about. She'd play it and she'd be okay with it, but I don't think she'd be super crazy about it. So yeah, that's my best new to me game of 2020, with probably a runner up of Flesh and Blood, but it's a CCG and it's not really what we do here.
Yeah, we don't do CCGs. Get that stuff out of here. Man. So Sean, I will say that being ill prepared, I was doing some research on the fly and looking back at some of our pre-COVID, pre-June episodes just to see if there was anything I missed. And there was something I missed for best 2020 game discussion, but I think technically this one I'm thinking about, I'll discuss it in a second here, but I think the one I'm thinking about is technically a 2020 release, so I think it's okay. I'll look it up on BGG as I'm discussing, so you may hear me morph. You may hear this thing morph as I multitask, Sean.
Okay.
The best new to me game, the one that came to mind immediately, is one that we talked about relatively recently, and that is Sprawlopolis. This is from Button Shy Games. This is the cooperative city building square game. We talked about this on the Button Shy episode. I won't rehash that review too much other than I gave it an immediate 6. It has a lot of elegance. It has cool scoring conditions. It's engaging, brain burnery, fun, really, really, really clever design. And one that I hadn't really discovered many of the Button Shy games prior to us doing that episode. One that I'm really grateful to have run into. Other contenders in this group, Sean, would have been Smartphone Inc. Full disclosure, from one of our sponsors, Arcane Wonders, but nonetheless one that I was surprised to have enjoyed as much as I did. I haven't played that one in the physical version. I think if I played the physical version of that, there's a chance that one would have surpassed. And then let me type in this one name. Yep, 2019 release. So, that makes it tricky. I guess throw in the mix here with all this, Sean, Glenmore Chronicles 2. Glenmore 2. That game was unbelievable how good it was. And I think it was my other 6 that I gave this year. It's listed on BGG as a 2019 release, so I don't know which one this falls into. But it's some sort of contender for either best new to me game or best game of 2020. It straddles the line. It's somewhere in that ballpark. That game is fantastic too. Glenmore 2, Chronicles Boogaloo. So that's best new to me game. I'll give it to Sprawlopolis with a couple little caveats in there. All right, finally, Sean, best 2020 game. And I'm going to go first and keep mine short and sweet because our next episode is going to be talking in depth about this game. I went back and forth between 2 games on this, but really the edge was pretty clear. The Crew was my runner-up on this category. Calico was, I think, in the mix for Game of the Year for me too. The Crew, I think, was a clear second. I love the cooperative trick-taking element in that game. A ton of fun. I've played it with a lot of different groups and enjoyed it with a lot of different groups. But my top game of 2020 was Dune Imperium. That thing had blew me away out of the gate for reasons that we'll get into much, much more on our next episode. Suffice it to say, I think it does a brilliant job of blending 2 different mechanics. It has enough of a thematic feel. It has the kind of combat that I tend to enjoy. It has the kind of player interactivity I tend to enjoy. And it has it in spades. It's thinky, has really interesting decisions, and we'll dive in much, much more into this when we have our next episode. So that's my hands down game of the year, Dune Imperium. Sean, over to you.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I would say that Dune Imperium could probably be a distant runner-up for a 2020 game. But man, looking at it, there's not been a lot of 2020 games that I've played. So, well, no, that's not true. A lot of 2020 games that I would say would be contenders. Let me rephrase that. So I think a runner-up would be Pan Am, which is, I believe it's a Target-only release. Is that right? No, I don't think that's true anymore. I think I saw some at Empire. But it's a very interesting delayed worker placement game. And this, delayed worker placement, when you place your workers, you don't get anything immediately. At the end of the round, you get stuff kind of like bus or dominant species. But then there's also an economic aspect to it. It's really good. I played on Tabletop Simulator, and I'm very excited. I think that's going to be something that gets pulled out a lot, kind of end of night on Wednesdays when we go back to that. I had another. What was the other runner-up I had? So Buffy the Vampire Slayer Unmatched. Mariah's asked to play it since, and I'm not sure how we want to treat Unmatched going forward. The system's technically 2019, at least the new system from Restoration Games. But of course, they're going to come out, like, there was just the big release for the four new Marvel sets. They're going to be coming out, I think, in the summer. So they're still cranking stuff out, which is fantastic. Super excited for that. Not sure how that fits into like a best of 2020 or whatever, but I really enjoyed the Buffy the Vampire Slayer set. So that's a runner-up. But my number one game of 2020 is Monumental, which I talked about last episode. The deck builder where it does something really interesting. Instead of playing cards from your hand, you play them from a 9x9 grid, and you pick a column and row to activate. And it's a civ builder. It's kind of a 3x, 3.5x, depending how you want to look at it. The production's great. Our buddy Aaron from Boards Alive, he lamented that after hearing me rave about it, he couldn't find it for purchase. It's not available for regular purchase, and that's kind of unfortunate. So Matthew Dunstan, one of the designers of Monumental, he chimed in and said that apparently you can get it. Let me see here. I'm looking for the tweet. There's a late pledge for the next printing. It's still live. So you can kind of check that out. But yeah, it's a fantastic game. And I think I mentioned in the last episode where we had played a bunch of games recently for the podcast, Raquel and I, and they were just really underwhelming, just super underwhelming. And we played this game, and 15 minutes into it, we were both like just incredibly blown away by it. It was so good. It was such a good deck builder, and the 3x3 grid, the grid of 9 cards was really unique. There's nothing earth shattering, but it was just put together in a really, really great way. The production's incredible. So much so, as far as our enjoyment goes, that we played it a second time the next morning. We left it set out. We're like, let's play again. And the game is incredible. And so hopefully, I don't know what they're going to be doing in terms of having these available for retail. It doesn't sound like that's necessarily something that's in the cards, but if you're able to take a look at the late pledge manager, it's something you want to look at, consider it. So I think you would like this quite a bit, Alex, but I don't think you would like the price tag, and it's not something that I could ever see you buying, but you would certainly enjoy mooching off of another friend that purchased it.
That sounds like a past version of me was very good at doing that.
So yeah, that's my 2020 game of the year, Monumental. Hold on. Now I'm worried it's not a 2020 game. I'm checking.
Uh-oh.
I think it is.
This would not be the first time this has happened.
It would not be. Monumental 2020 according to BGG. Boom. I'm out. Before anything changes, I'm out.
You're good. You're good. Whew. All right. Well, that's kind of it, Sean. We peaked way too early in this top 6. There's nothing else to say. There's no other best of the rest. Thanks for sticking with me through another year to you. Thanks to the guild and all of our listeners for sticking with us for another year. 2021 will hopefully be better than 2020 was. I look forward to bountiful plays of new games for you in 2021, Sean. That's my wish for you.
Man, me too. For real. For real. Yeah, no, I think, assuming the Galactic Federation has kind of come in and given us the super vaccine that's going to deal with COVID-20 as well, I'm assuming everything will be fine and we'll be back to normal. What would you do, Alex?
I can't wait. I'll be first in line for
you. What? You wake up. There's an emergency broadcast. It comes through on your phone, right? Because I'm sure that's how we'd be alerted. It comes through on your phone. The Galactic Federation has arrived. This is, they've invited us into membership. What's your response? How are you dealing with this?
I mean, I'm going to see if I can get a trip to space out of the whole thing. Like, if they're offering, asking for volunteers to be first in line for the super space vaccine, the galactic vaccine, yeah, I'll check that out. That's fine. I'm down. I'm excited. I'm thrilled. I think it's a fantasy that I've secretly had for a long time, that something like that would happen. So I think I'd be stoked. Sean, would you be looking into fighter pilot training and kind of switching course from being a lawyer at that point?
No, I'd be too old. And my guess is it would all be drones. Like fighter pilots in space really doesn't make sense. Like it really doesn't make any sense.
What about Galactic Senate?
Yeah, probably. I'm guessing it's not. I don't know. I'd probably. I don't know. I think there's supposed to be a base on Mars, is my understanding of. I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly. That there's a base on Mars. Maybe we can move to Mars. Get your butt to Mars. I cleaned it up for the Dice Tower Network. Get your butt to Mars.
Sean, I don't have a good answer to this, but I can tell you it would only be the second most interesting thing that happened in 2020. But probably not.
All right. Well, that's going to do it. Yes. Thanks everyone for sticking around for another year of this nonsense. 2021 will hopefully be much brighter, Galactic Federation or not. So this has been episode 241. Hindsight is 2020. Thanks again to Steve O'Rourke. Until next year, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on December 20th, 2020. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all that is in the Duchy, go to DukesofDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Arcane Wonders and Game Toppers LLC. You can find out all about Arcane Wonders fine titles at ArcaneWonders.com and learn all you need to know about Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. All hail the Galactic Federation. Until next year, game on!